percentage of the Haredim do you think are capable of emulating Shimon Bar Yochai? My guess would be less than 1%, but what's your guess?
Yeah, probably like less than 1%. And so if you take the rabbis and they're just saying like, I'm sorry, like the price is like Adam Green, the punishment is death. Like I know you want to be a follower of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but if you don't make the cut, it could cost you your life. So from a strict Kabbalist, like Luke, like you're in LA and someone wants to study Kabbalah, you're like, well, I'll teach you Kabbalah, but if you don't learn it right, it's probably going to cost you your life. Um, isn't really an approach, but that's what the books themselves say. So, what the rabbis, what the Kabbalists actually believe, what Israelis believe versus Haredim. Haredim are basically just brought up and born into it. And then also, it's advantageous in Israel to be Haredi. As we discussed, like, the law in Israel favors Haredim, where you basically get charity and state benefits. And the only thing you have to do in return is be Haredi. So probably, Luke is right, 95, 99% of Haredim, they don't really believe it that way. But it's because of the structure of Israel. But you could see that maybe they're wrong. That if Israel was like, let's change the structure, that the Haredim would be like zealots, and they would be like, no, I'd rather die. And they've had these debates over the years. So the American press doesn't like to cover this. But the Haredim for like 70 years have basically been at odds with the state at threat of death, where like in the 50s, where they tried to do mandatory military service for girls, and the majority of the Haredi leaders said that it would be better to die than for girls to join the IDF, and there were actually riots and people did die, and then eventually the state backed down. But like in terms of the political strategy of the Haredim, it's kind of like Black Lives Matter, where we lay down in front of buses and we tell the state that we don't fear death and there's nothing you could do to change our beliefs. And it puts Israel in a situation where, God forbid, the only thing that they could really do is call their bluff. And usually it doesn't work, because if you're familiar with Israel, there's riots and there's police cracking the heads of Haredim all the time.
Okay, David, I'm going to move on. Any final words for today?
Yeah, I appreciate you covering this, and it's really hard to explain this because like people in Israel or people that support Israel and Hasbara type thing, they don't want the Haredi attitude becoming popular in America. They don't want the Haredi view winning out. So there's purposely kind of a news, and it's also the who is a Jew question that, like me or Luke, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, it's at the end of the day, the Haredim are basically going to determine whether we're Jews or not. You say, like, I don't want the Haredim determining whether we're Jew, but in Israeli politics, in the various things that that's why I just call myself a half Jew, because because to some extent, who is a Jew as of now, according to Israeli law, is determined by the Haredim. You have guys like Mark Shapiro and all these great people, but Mark Shapiro can't do conversions. So it's a pretty bad situation. And then like me or Luke to step up is doing it. It's like, no, I'm not an anti-Semite. I dedicated my whole life to Judaism, but like no one wants to hear like me or Luke say bad things about Jews or bad things about Israel. So if I'm just describing Israeli law as I understand it, and it's like you can't even tell people what the Israeli law is. So I appreciate at least you discussing this a little bit.
Okay, thanks, David. Good to talk to you. The chat says the Haredim might not fear death, but they do fear working. Elliot says these acts of pseudo-martyrdom are cringe. Chat says Haredim act tough with Israeli police since they know that the police will not kill them. Not fearing death is easy when you know that the police won't kill you. All right, New York Times. So talking about the event that contained the stampede causing 45 deaths Thursday night, Friday morning. The event has long prompted calls to limit the number of pilgrims allowed to attend. The site is a warren of narrow, sloping passageways and small, cramped plazas that visitors have often warned were unsuitable for crowds. And some good pictures here in the New York Times report. So have a look. I mean, you really would not want to be in a large crowd here. I mean, it's a death trap just waiting to happen. So thousands of people tried to leave by way of a steep, narrow slope that connects via a short bank of steps to a narrow tunnel. As they neared the steps of the tunnel, some at the front slipped on the metal floor of the slope. That created a sudden blockage, trapping hundreds at the bottom. As more and more pilgrims continued to leave the ceremony above, they began trampling on those below them. In 2008 and 2011, the state controller, government watchdog, warned that the site's pathways were too narrow to accommodate so many people. The local council leader said that he had tried to close it at least 3 times. 2013, the police chief of northern Israel warned colleagues of the potential for deadly accident. In 2018, the editor of a major Haredi magazine said it was a recipe for disaster. So it may be true that the Meron disaster site is revealed as a place where nobody was ever really in charge, but it's not going to stay that way for long. I'm pretty sure there's going to be accountability, and it's not going to be allowed to continue like this. So let's get a little bit here from Richard Spencer and Edward Dutton talking to...
You're welcome. First off, special
Atheism is
guest,
Unstoppable.
Devin, how are you? Welcome.
Oh my God. How did I get here? How did it all come to this, Richard?
Well, the way I did it is that I said I'm Warren Southern, and I would like to have a conversation with you about the future of the Republican Party. And you bought it, and now here you are.
Well, I'm glad I can join you on your show because I'm penciled in later for Derek Chauvin's podcast, so it's good to get that out of the way first. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So you should,
No,
yeah,
I've known of
the
you.
man in America.
Exactly. I've known of you for quite some time, and I guess I'll just get the formalities out of the way. I'm sure everyone has to give the caveats. Richard Spencer is the personification of evil and is the devil reincarnated, and I disavow everything he says. And yeah. Now, having said that, we can talk.
Yeah, your being on here is like an act of resistance in many ways. Yeah.
It's like walking through a minefield. My
Yeah, well, everyone thinks that if you associate with Richard Spencer, then you're a white supremacist. No, but I'm not a white supremacist. I'm a British supremacist.
Exactly.
That's a very different thing.
Well, I've always...
British Empire.
Have you noticed that the Nazis get called white supremacists? And I always was tickled by that because clearly they burrowed down and could care less about whiteness. Life is a little bit more complicated, but apparently not in America because that's where it gets flattened out. But I don't want to spoil. I'll let you lead the dance. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, I'm interested in the topic of atheism. This is something that Ed and I have talked about. And I think I was joking before we went live that Ed's a self-hating... Well, I joked that he's a self-hating atheist, and Ed's response was that... do you want to give your response?
Well, I said that I'm perfectly happy to be an atheist to the extent that I am one, but I would prefer it if other people believed in God.
Right. That's
I don't want to be in a world where other people are atheists. I'm content most of the time. I always say I believe in God sometimes. So very occasionally I find myself having religious belief, but most of the time there's nothing particularly there. But I don't want other people to feel like that. And
so a lot of people are like this, and people just they're often satisfied. Oh, I don't believe in God most of the time, and leave it there. But you have to put yourself in a space if you want to accomplish certain things. So if you want to make God real in your life, you have to create a certain vessel, a container, a certain space for that. So it may mean having holiness in your room. Look at my room. Look at the holiness. I have these beautiful posters of holy sites. It creates a sense of holiness in my room. The first 2-3 hours of my day, I don't consume news. So I create a holy space at the beginning of my day. It's my 12-step program, my Jewish prayers, my sponsorship work. So I carve out about a 2 to 3 hour space every morning in my day where I can connect with God, where I can connect with what is kind in me. So I have plenty of cruelty in me. I have plenty of selfishness, savagery, and sadism, and tendencies to exploit others. But I try to take a couple of hours at the beginning of the day to connect with something that is softer, gentler, kinder in me. I try to connect with God, try to connect with my best self, try to connect with other people. So if you want to have a sense of God, it's not like, oh, I don't have a sense of God, so let me just watch a football game. If you really want a sense of God, then you have to create time. You have to create sacred space, sacred time, and put yourself in a place where you can feel more likely to connect with God. You are not going to feel a connection with God as likely at Dodger Stadium, as likely at a bar, as likely at a secular event as you will if you put yourself in a house of worship or a meditation center or a prayer garden, or you put yourself out in nature. go to Yosemite, you'll have a sense of awe. You'll be much more likely to be able to connect with God at Yosemite or Yellowstone or in some awesome natural space than just kicking back, watching a football game and saying, oh, I just don't really feel God. I wish I did. Well, if you really wished that you had a connection with God, you have to do some work. It isn't just like given to everybody to feel this innate connection with God. You have to carve out that sacred space. So it means there are certain posters that you do not put up in your room. There may be certain books that you do not house in your office or in your bedroom or in your living room that you may want to hide away so that you don't encounter them. You have to make some deliberate choices in the TV that you watch, the movies that you watch, the music that you listen to, the way that you speak, the friends that you hang out with, the community that you live in, right? If you really want to connect with God, then it requires work. It requires some sacrifice. You remove certain things from your life so that you can allow the divine to come in. It's hard to be stroking off to pornography with one hand and reaching out to God with the other, right? That doesn't usually work for most people. If you've got both a prayer life and a masturbation life, usually one of them is going to overcome the other. Most people are not going to go on praying and masturbating. Usually you're going to go the way of masturbation or you're going to go the way of prayer. The more you pray, the less likely you are to masturbate. The more you masturbate, the less likely you are to have a connection with God. So if you really think, oh, it'd be nice if I had a connection with God, it'd be nice if I believed in God, then what kind of work are you doing to create that space?
When I was younger, I was a screaming out and out atheist. I was known as Atheist Ed. That was my nickname at university. I was an evangelical atheist, and I was in opposition to these fundamentalist Christians, these evangelicals and whatever. And as I've got older, the more I've realised this is those people who are nice and pleasant and kind and who you can rely on and who have a sense of meaning and who are happy and who are content. And it is the atheists, and the data bears me out on this, who tend to be physically ill, mentally ill, narcissistic malcontents, and generally unpleasant people. And they have now taken over society.
So religion, Judaism, Christianity, I assume Islam, posits that God wants to dwell among us. Okay, so if God wants to dwell in your home, have you created a home where God will feel comfortable in dwelling? Or is your house a house of fornication, of adultery, of masturbation, of impurity, of immodesty, of all sorts of filth and dirt and disgusting practices, habits, posters, books, magazines, entertainment, movies, TV, right? God wants to dwell with you, but are you creating a space where that's likely to happen? Just like if you want to date a hot chick, right? Is she going to be satisfied that you spend most of your time gaming? No. If you want to date a hot chick, there are a lot of requirements, and you marry a hot chick, she's going to have a lot more requirements and demands on you than a homely chick, because a hot chick can always find another guy. All right, so hot chicks are always going to be higher maintenance. If you want to secure a hot chick, you're going to have to earn more money. You're going to have to create a life that she wants to be a part of. You're going to have a lifestyle that she enjoys, that she respects, that she admires, and that she longs to join your trip. All right, you can't live a slovenly life and maintain a relationship with a hot chick. You have to achieve certain things before a hot chick will even consider going out with you. And if you want to sustain the relationship, there are all sorts of obligations that come with that. There's a huge price to pay if you want a hot chick in your life. So too, you want God in your life? There's a huge price to pay for most people. You're going to have to give up a whole bunch of things. You're going to have to set aside time, space for God. You want a hot chick? You're going to have to give up a lot of things. You're going to have to do certain things. You're going to have to do a lot of things that aren't natural. You're going to have to earn more money. You're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to achieve more status and prestige. You're going to have to build a life that a hot chick who has so many options is going to want to be a part of. Do you think some hot chick who also has a flourishing career is going to want to connect with you if you're a loser, if you're spending much of your time dissipating yourself on watching TV or watching sports or playing video games? No. A hot chick is not going to want to get with you if your YouTube show sucks, if your life sucks, if your bank account sucks, if your credit card debt sucks, the way you dress sucks. Okay, she is not going to be so excited about joining that kind of life. So the good things in life often come with considerable demands, and the finer the chick, the finer the relationship you want to have with God, then the more work you're going to have to do, the higher standards you're going to have to reach, the more you're going to have to grow, the more you're going to have to push yourself, the more things you're going to need to do that don't come naturally to you, the more you're going to have to push yourself, the less you can be slovenly and selfish and indulgent.
Society, and look, be careful what you wish for. I've got my dream that I had at my Catholic boys' school when I was younger. I've got my dream of an atheistic society, and I think it's a lot worse than the society that preceded it. So that's why I say I'm happy for me to be an atheist, but I don't want anybody else to be an atheist.
Devin?
That is a very grim portrait of atheism, but I will say, when I used to talk about atheism, that was one of the sticking points that I believe religious people would kind of stab into us, into our flank, and twist the knife, which was, I think atheists commit suicide more. I think that might be true.
That's
Now,
true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the rebuttal to that is, I mean, I don't think self-delusion is an answer. I grant you it's better than suicide, but I think, look, atheists, we're looking into the abyss. We're looking into that terror, and we're facing the demons of our situation. So we're basically, we're looking down the barrel of the existential crisis of mortality, and it's not easy. There's no easy fix. So when people say,
Yeah, and atheism also allows you to bang whoever you want. Atheism allows you to do anything you want. There's no moral code that comes with being an atheist. So if you want to bang, the atheist perspective is much more amenable to that than a religious perspective. Now, the chat says masturbation is not discussed in the Bible. Fine. But let's just say that's true. That's irrelevant to my point. There are all sorts of practices that may not be explicitly discussed in the Bible that are not conducive to connection with God. So I don't believe that pornography is explicitly discussed in the Bible. I don't believe that insider trading is explicitly discussed in the Bible. There are all sorts of things that you can do today that are not explicitly discussed in the Bible, but are going to cut you off from God, are going to cut you off from your higher self, they're going to cut you off from the possibility of connection with good people. Right? You meet a good, solid citizen, a hardworking person, they're not going to want you in their life if you're an under-earner, right? If you're an under-earner, there's a stench that comes with being an under-earner. If you're a sex and love addict, there's a stench that comes from being a sex and love addict. If you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, there's a stench that comes with alcoholism and drug addiction. So people who have a clean life are not going to want your filthiness anywhere near their life. I have a clean life. I have a life where I feel happy about 95% of the time, where I have inner peace about 99% of the time. I have a life where I feel clean about 99% of the time. I suffer very little internal distress. Right? I am not going to want anyone in my life who's got drama, who's just filthy, disgusting, wretched, unless they are trying to change their situation, unless they're willing to work some program of recovery, then I'm willing to have certain, limited interactions with them if I can be of service to them. But if people just want to wallow in their filth and destructiveness and indulgence, then I'm not going to have them in my life, and no decent person will.
what are we going to replace Christianity with or religion with? It's clearly not atheism. That's not even an answer to that. So,
well, then, so that's what I mean. So it is spreading negative social epistasis. It is spreading negative feelings. It is also an evolutionary mismatch. We are evolved under harsh conditions to believe in God. It's an instinct. It's at times of stress. It's associated with positive feelings. It's associated with being pro-social. It's associated with binding society together. It's associated with physical health. It's associated with.
I think for most guys, anyway, they decide the sex life that they want to have, and then decide their religiosity or lack thereof after that. If you want to get married and have kids, right, you're very likely to choose a religious way of life. If you want to bang as many women as possible, not be weighed down by the responsibilities of raising kids, then you're going to choose an atheist perspective on life. So for many men in particular, choosing a sexual strategy comes first, right? You want to bang? The atheist perspective is going to suit you much better. If you want to build a family and settle down with one person, then the religious perspective comes much more amenable to that.
Mental health, it underpins ethnocentrism. Indeed, it's been shown that being group-oriented, it's the same part of the brain that is stimulated when you think about God and things like this. So it's this thing we're highly evolved to. So if you take it away, you put people in an evolutionary mismatch, like, I don't know, locking a dog in a room and never taking it for a walk, and you send them mad. And I think that's what we're seeing. So it's a very bad thing. Most people live a lie. Most people get through life by living a lie. Of many levels. And it seems to me that if there's one thing that is an example of a positive big lie, it's even if maybe there is a God, I don't know, but assuming you're right that there isn't, is this, because people don't.
Yeah, people may not be able to handle too much reality. Now, Richard Spencer and Mark Brahman claim that Apolloism will be a good substitute for Christianity. I'm skeptical.
But perhaps the far more important question is, have these myths been shown to form the basis of any meaningful, significant, or potent civilization? Or ultimately, is the instinct toward these Celtic and Norse myths born of an instinct toward primitivism, toward fantasy book escapism, toward bowing out of a civilizational contest, toward shrouding oneself in a mystical identity? Some believe that a national myth or a religion, whether Christianity or pagan, while useful as propaganda, is pliable and can be turned in any direction, whatever its original design or intention. And here many believe, or at least argue, that this original intention can only be guessed at, and is, in any case, always up for interpretation, such as Christ's command that one should not resist evil persons. Hence, they posit that the use of inscrutable myths or religions as pretty but ultimately meaningless cloaks to their true political message, indifferent to whether or not these cloaks, upon closer investigation, seem to contradict the political message that seeks cover within them. As a consequence, these appropriators render their message contradictory, incoherent, unsophisticated, and, to intelligent people, unappealing. Then there are those who give lip service to the notion that politics lie downstream from culture, yet act as though myth and religion are irrelevant to concrete political problems. Rather, in their view, it is far wiser to avoid the topic altogether, lest one become offensive or divisive, or engage in iconoclasm. Hence, in a manner, every ostensibly European tradition, whether pagan or Christian, is understood as equally valid. One may argue this position is not entirely distinct from Franz Boas' notion of cultural relativism, where we find the Bantu a cultural equal of the 18th century Englishman or the ancient Roman. Here, the thinking is that increasingly censored, deplatformed, criminalized, poorly funded, and cloistered dissident online and regional enclaves are capable of reaching large audiences, so should develop culturally neutral, inoffensive populist propaganda. This despite the fact that their political message is far more offensive than any currently proposed cultural or religious presentation. REM theorists, in contrast, believe that their message should target especially intelligent, culturally sophisticated, ambitious, talented, creative, free-thinking, open yet critically minded, successful and well-positioned persons capable of actually making a difference. Idealistic people, people who want to save the world, people who want to save civilization. REM theorists believe in the power of myth. They believe that the stories we tell inspire us, motivate us, and unite us in a way baser considerations like wealth, social status, and day-to-day politics cannot. Likewise, they believe myth and religion may and have been developed consciously and intelligently to evoke a psychological or spiritual effect in intended audiences or religious flocks. They do perceive a symbolic coherency among both salient, modern, and ancient myths.
Okay, so what they're talking about there as far as the basic emotions, what they're really talking about is reality. So, no, I don't think Apolloism is going to sweep the world. I don't think it's going to be influential because it is opposed to reality. So, for many people in 12-step recovery who don't believe in God, they simply substitute reality for God, that God is simply a metaphor for reality. So, to regard the desire to make money, or the desire for status, or the desire for fame, or for the desire for sexual satisfaction, as somehow base and inferior to the desire for mythology is absurd. We are driven by certain basic instincts. The desire for sexual satisfaction is basic, but it's not base. There's nothing wrong with it. The desire for status, the desire for physical safety, for financial safety, the desire to move ahead in your field, these are basic. They're not base. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. Having a life obsessed with mythology is not better than having a life obsessed with building a better car, right? So people who devote themselves to their careers or devote themselves to raising their kids, there's nothing base about that. It's basic. It's not base. You're not better off, devoting your life to the god Apollo, right? As long as you follow basic laws of the land and also operate in a way that you'd be fine if what you're saying and doing shows up reported accurately on the front page of the New York Times, then devoting yourself to your career, to your job, to making money is usually going to be a wonderful thing because you will be meeting the needs of other people. That's how you make money. You meet the needs of other people. People who are poor because they're not interested in helping others. People who want to be of service to others, who want to help others, who want to make other people's lives better, who want to give people a way to deal with their problems, those people are never going to be poor, right? Those people are always going to prosper. So this notion that somehow obsessing with Apollo is somehow finer than obsessing with taking care of your family and moving ahead with your profession is silly.
They believe that through a revival and even refinement of interpretatio Romana, or Roman interpretation, not only may healthy myth be perceived among pre-existing myth in the world, it may be consciously and intelligently developed to produce a moralizing and eugenic effect in the people. But why Apolloism? And why focus on this one god of a pantheon of gods? To be clear, REM theorists or Apollonians advocate for the veneration of multiple important celestial deities and the sober-headed understanding of them all, as each represents useful archetypes that may be used in parable, whether openly or veiled, whether as protagonists or antagonists, toward the purpose of moralization.
So whenever I hear Mark Brauman about, I don't know, 2% of the time, I think he says something insightful, and about 98% of the time, I think he is useless.
Lay down their lives for rational, logical belief for most people, but they can be induced to do so for their people, and if they think their people are God's people, I guess all kinds of positive things to other people believing in God.
I just think that there's got to be a way that we push forward instead of going backwards. So I hear a lot of sort of nostalgia for the days of religion, or I wish other people were religious. But like, you're not going to convince people who have. I mean, we're through the looking glass here, and
we've never had really a secular society, so we don't have much evidence from history that secularism is a life that works. Like, give us examples of how secularism is a life that works. We don't have many or any examples of that. A life that works always involves some kind of religious impulse or community, or comes as the cut flowers, as the result of many generations of people leading a traditional life. And then the first generation or two after religion, they live on the capital that has been accumulated for them by their ancestors. So this notion that somehow we can come up with Apolloism, we can come up with a meaningful atheistic way of life that works, it's just not going to happen, because it hasn't happened. Humanity's been around for tens of thousands of years. We don't have examples of flourishing secular societies, except perhaps modern Europe and the United States, which is living off the capital of the traditional ways of many generations of their ancestors. So I should probably refer a little bit to the topic for today's stream: hidden heretics, Jewish doubt in the digital age. So for whatever reason, I know a lot of Orthodox Jews who either don't believe in God or struggle in their belief in God, or they don't believe in traditional teachings with regard to the Torah being every single word the word of God. And so for some reason, I know a lot of these people. There's a book that came out in 2021, Hidden Heretics, Jewish Doubt in the Digital Age.
So yes, I will begin with a short vignette that will give you a sense of who the people are in Hidden Heretics. So Yisrael grew up Hasidic in Brooklyn, where like his peers, he spent long hours studying in yeshiva. When he was 13, he began to have questions, what are called the minakashas, or questions of faith. But when he asked his rabbi about them, he was told those kinds of questions came from masturbation. So he was silent and he stopped asking. He told me he pushed all of his questions under the rug. At 18, he got married to a woman he didn't know but grew to adore, Ruchi, and they quickly had 5 kids. But when he was 29, his questions started again. And because he, like so many other Hasidic men, had started working in computers, he had access to the internet, and he began to go online, reading biblical archaeology, philosophy. Late at night, when his family was asleep, he was alone in his kitchen, he began to go on the popular heretical blogs of the day, and then later on to chat rooms, arguing with other posters, trying to convince himself and others that the Torah was the word of God, revealed to Moses or Moshe at Mount Sinai. And then late one night, Shabbos, when his youngest was crying, and he knew that turning on her musical mobile that hung above her bed would calm her down. Of course, ultra-Orthodox Jews don't use electricity on Shabbos. He paused. He put his hand on the switch. Yes, no, and he turned it on. And that was when he became what many in the community call Bahal Tanat Bikorsim, or hidden heretics. Those who are living double lives, practicing publicly even at home, but secretly with new friends, breaking Jewish law and exploring the wider world of New York City. But despite trying to keep his new beliefs and life secret from his family, of course his wife Ruchi noticed. And finally she asked him, did he still pray? Did he even believe in God? He confessed everything to her, talking late into the night in their bedroom closet so the kids wouldn't hear. She was devastated and told me she cried for 3 days. Was her husband crazy? Would she worry her own faith slip? How could she possibly take on responsibility for the spirituality of the house, which was traditionally the realm of her husband? Yisrael was desperate to regain his faith, and he sought out special outreach rabbis to help him, kiruv rabbis, but none did. And then finally, one day, the Modesty Committee, which is a shadowy group of self-appointed activists, called his house. They noticed that he had recently bought a book on science that included evolution for his young daughter. They wanted him to sign a contract, agreeing to stop going on social media. And they wanted him to go see religious therapists.
So how would you like to have the Modesty Patrol stop by your home and have you sign a contract that you won't, bring certain books into your home? So anonymous professor writes, I think Luke is right. Religious belief follows one's behavior perhaps more than religion shapes one's behavior. And chat says the Heretics won't work and they won't fight. They're useless. Trad Catholics adopt traditional stances to bolster their preferences. Half Galatian notes, consciously seeking mythology post-enlightenment seems ridiculous. And Trad Caths also have a hard time reconciling their own views and belief in the papacy with more ecumenical and tolerant position that the Roman Catholic Church has taken over the past 50 years. Kuchulango says, I can't believe this cat, Luke Ford, only has 29 viewers. And Raganuth notes, Luke Ford just isn't entertaining enough, bro. So if I really wanted to be the serious intellectual that I claim to be, then I would not be doing nearly as many live streams. I would just be writing. This is not a genre, a communications method that is amenable primarily to intellectual discussion. This is an entertainment genre. All right. Live streams are primarily entertainment. It's a genre that works for entertainment. If you want to primarily investigate ideas, that works much better with writing. So I pretend to do all these serious shows, but I'm a fool, because if I really wanted to be serious, I would stop doing live streams, or I'd cut way back on them, and I just write. I just focus on my blog. But by not living in reality, I have the worst of both worlds. I pretend to do these intellectual live streams, but in a mechanism, in a medium that demands primarily entertainment. So I am empirically failing in a medium that primarily demands entertainment, because I am trying to do shows that are simply not suited for this medium. I have the notion that I want to come on here and explore ideas, that I want to delve deeply into this new book. This is not a medium that is particularly well suited for that. I may be wrong here, but if I really wanted to be as intellectually serious as I pretend, then I wouldn't be doing these live streams. I'd just be writing on my blog. I'd produce, say, one thoughtful blog post a week of 10,000 words, doing a book review. Cooch says, it seems like he should be more popular. He touches on many important subjects. Half Galatian notes, and this is absolutely accurate. This is why I love Half Galatian's rejoinders, because whenever I'm going off on a bender, he very good at providing the opposite point of view. Religious people live off the capital built by the Enlightenment. True. Why are there so many downvotes relative to upvotes here? Are there hate watchers of this channel? So some days it's like that. So the topic, Hidden Heretics, Jewish Doubt in the Digital Age, it immediately got 3 downvotes before I even started the stream. But sometimes I will stream and the stream will get 90% upvotes. So it's interesting. So Aaron says, I'm tap dancing. Maybe he's referring to Ed Dutton and Richard Spencer. Luke needs a hot sidekick. Does my brain work better after I empty the bowels, bro? Probably. Yeah, I used to have 200, 300 viewers in Wignat days. So the medium has changed. So I had a much more entertaining show when I was able to talk about topics that were out on the edge. But because I have chosen to restrict myself to YouTube's terms of service, where I was able to produce popular shows, it's no longer accessible on YouTube. So embrace your stupid, Luke. Let it guide you. Thank you, Aaron. I really appreciate your support. What I don't understand is why Luke devotes so much time to these live streams when they get him neither money nor honor. Money, respect, women. This live stream gets Luke none of these.
Would work closely with his rabbi. He went to a number of them for fear that his children would be expelled from school, which would have consequences for matchmaking later on, but nothing helped him. And that was when I met him, just as his world was falling apart. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and his story and how it affected his family is one of the many I analyze in Hidden Heretics, of ultra-Orthodox Jews who are experiencing what I call life-changing doubt, but because of their families and fear, they cannot leave. They stay and try to figure out how to secretly build relationships, dreams, and desires, even while they pretend to live ultra-Orthodox religious lives. The internet plays a key role in their ability to stay, and the worlds they build with new friends and lovers unintentionally and intentionally may be changing Orthodoxy itself. So I'll say a few words now about some of the key issues in the book, right, Michal?
Right.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay, Raganu says Luke Ford is 54. He has no kids, no wife. What else is he going to do for entertainment? Luke cares about enjoyment. That's why he does these streams. Luke does these streams because I harass him every day to do them. Good for Luke. This is entertaining for him. This is cheap entertainment. Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. So we tend to do what we're good at. And so I am good at these type of streams, not as good as I think I am. But just like some people like to game, right? Some people like to game in their spare time. Other people like to play basketball in their spare time. Other people like to knit. Other people just like to make money. So we do things that we're good at and that we enjoy. So I do so many of these live streams, one, because I enjoy them, and two, because I feel like I'm good at them, and three, they're like a workout for my mind. So there are so many variables and so many challenges, and I just enjoy the workout. Some people like to lift. Some people like to run. Some people like to go to the gym. I like to live stream. And then I think, I could be deluding myself, I think the primary reason I do these live streams is that I really like the Lucosphere. I really like the community that I'm building up here. It's not big, but it's high quality. Like when people come into town and I meet up with people for dinner or for coffee or just to go for a walk, I really like the people who watch this show. And I really like meeting people through this show. And so I really like the Lucosphere, this tiny number of people, whether some in New York City, some in Washington, D.C., some in San Francisco, some in Sydney, Australia. I really like the tiny number of people who watch this show and stay in touch with me and who I meet up with in person. So I think the primary power and influence of this show is quite disproportionate to its numbers. About a dozen people have started live streaming in part because of the inspiration or the influence of doing this show. That there are a lot of people who have a connection to this show, and they may not watch it for 6 months. All right, they may get busy with something, with a political campaign or with a new job, but then they'll check back in. So I've been doing these live streams on a near daily basis for 3.5 years. And just the quality of the people I meet through these streams is just consistently impressive to me. Smart, pro-social, and yet willing to engage with dissident ideas. So I love the people, and I love the conversations, and I love the connection, and I love the community that is slowly, erratically, incrementally being built. And one day we shall take over.
Just checking. And then we'll have our conversation. So let me say a few words first about doubt. I'd like to clarify that doubt is inherent to all religions. Doubt defines, it refines faith. It's expected, in fact, by religious leaders and religious participants both. It ebbs and flows over the life cycle. This is the kind of doubt that remains in individuals' interiors, and it doesn't really disrupt religious practice. My focus in Hidden Heretics, though, is different. It's what I call life-changing doubt, and it's the kind of doubt that challenges the entire theological structure of orthodoxy. Life-changing doubt refused to stay inside people, and it led people to disrupt or stop their religious practice. Often this kind of doubt makes people leave their religious communities, but those living double lives couldn't. They didn't want to hurt their families, or they were too scared to leave their communities. They felt they were unprepared to live outside of their communities, and so they stayed, keeping this dramatic personal change a secret. Eventually, many went online and found others, which created anonymous networks of doubters, who over time began to also meet secretly in person and explore forbidden worlds together and break Jewish law away from the eyes of their families and their communities. Life-changing doubt had familial and communal implications in addition to this dramatic personal change. Even when kept secret, it affected spouses, children, and over the time I was doing fieldwork, it drew increasing attention from religious leadership, activists, and religious therapists, people who all tried to help those with life-changing doubt regain their faith. So let me just give you a little context for who these heretics are and the context that they're living. While the numbers of those living double lives and the fellow travelers with them are not really reliably known, I mean, I've heard individual estimates varying from 100 to tens of thousands worldwide. What is important, I think, is that they increasingly figure large in the ultra-Orthodox imagination, as do those who have left or gone off the derech or off the path, what many people call OTD. This is despite ultra-Orthodoxy's continued robust demographic growth. So with large families, in fact, these communities are growing, but there's a lot of concern about people who are leaving or people whose faith has somehow been challenged. Some religious authorities blame what they call a crisis of emunah or a crisis of faith on a religious orthodoxy that has gotten too stringent. Some blame trauma or mental illness, in a way pathologizing life-changing doubt. And others blame the internet, particularly smartphones, which created opportunities for private exploration and community building. I want to just point out that it's important to note that ultra-Orthodox Jews have not historically rejected new technologies or science for that matter out of hand, as long as science or that new technology could be redeemed through Jewish content or Jewish form. When I was doing fieldwork for my first project in the 90s, cassette tapes had long already become kosher because Jewish music could be recorded on cassette tapes. TV was not so easy to control, and that was forbidden by rabbis. VHS also, if you remember.
Okay, let's get back to the chat. Laponia says, Ford is a good interviewer. Get more people on to interview, bro. Exactly. Bro, I'm not knocking you for not having kids or wife. I'm saying, why not live stream? What else would you do? You don't have kids to work and die for, to leave money to. Anonymous says, I don't miss the Wignap blood sports, but I do miss Kevin Michael Grace. Problem with having kids is you have to worry about them financially. A book at least would get Luke possibly honor, and who knows, it could catch on and get him money and women too. But live streams, I miss Dennis Dale. People do crossword puzzles. Does it bring them money, women, or status? Ford is good at playing tennis with a guest. I'm watching this live stream. Doesn't make me any money. Anonymous says, I have no kids, no wife after 20 plus years. Maybe I should start my own live stream. Should do Sunday shows outside. Once had a Torah class with Luke. It was just me, Luke, and the young rabbi. You should do a live stream on reincarnation. Do bored men die younger? Well, I think bored men definitely have higher testosterone. Modern Orthodox are more deluded than the Haredim because they think they've reconciled science and faith. Well, yeah, they may think that, but they put almost no effort into it. So the intellectual level of modern Orthodoxy is usually quite shallow. So modern Orthodoxy is a wonderful way of life for high-achieving people, but they put very little effort into reconciling reality with their religion. Aaron says the Haredim are a frightening demographic. Luke should have live streams on reincarnation and quantum physics. I should sell freeze-dried food.
Remember what that is? It was outlawed while I was doing my fieldwork in the 90s. Over this past decade, though, the internet has become a flashpoint for what I see as a wider crisis of authority. Those living double lives tapped into a broader generational backlash of Hasidic and yeshivish men in particular in their late 20s, 30s, and 40s, who had become frustrated and cynical for a whole host of reasons. Some of which I'll just mention, the breakdown in political leadership, rabbinic leadership over succession, which really exposed a very...
I love this speaker. Doesn't she have a wonderful quality to her? Ayala Fader. So she is a professor of Jewish studies at Fordham University. I have not read her books, but just from the way she presents, I imagine that her books are quite engaging. So the way she speaks, the way she carries herself is quite it's quite engaging. Seems like a really lovely, interesting, fun woman.
Human side of power struggles, the economic challenges of living in New York City. Men with limited educations, especially limited fluency in English, were frustrated that they couldn't support their families. And finally, the sexual abuse scandals also created a lot of cynicism that the rabbis that so many had trusted to be their leaders and protect their children, in fact, were not doing so. So this broader context really set the stage for many living double lives who were fed up with what they called the system. And let me just conclude my portion by telling you a little bit about what anthropologists do and what my research consisted of. So anthropologists use a methodology called ethnography, basically participant observation. So anthropologists participate in the community they're working in and they observe. So for me, for this project, over 5 years, I followed people living double lives where they let me. First online and then in person. I went to parties, to blogs. I hung out in bars late at night after all of our children were asleep. I was on closed WhatsApp groups. So the ethnographic research, the participant observation, took place on digital media, but also in face-to-face contexts. I had an unusual amount of access, something I hadn't expected, to hidden heretics because many of them wanted their story told. They wanted to show their world and the wider world that they were moral people who were making the best decisions they could in order to protect the families that they loved. One thing I realized midway through the research was that I had to account for the perspective of the religious therapists, the outreach rabbis, and the life coaches, all of those who were the sort of professionals who tried to help those living double lives when they were outed or discovered. Those ultra-Orthodox were much less, life coaches in particular, and some of the rabbis were less eager to talk to me. So it was a reverse of what I had expected, because they really didn't want to expose the kind of public doubt that so many of these Jews were experiencing and writing about. They didn't want to, as they said, air dirty laundry. And so, but one of the aspects of ethnography that I think is so valuable is with patients, you can always find people to talk to you. So over time, I did find life coaches, rabbis who would talk to me. Religious therapists were quite open, and I went to a religious therapist conference and multiple workshops. And I would say one of the real challenges throughout this research project, more than my first, certainly, was that I had to really protect the anonymity of the hidden heretics that I was working with, because there could have been very serious consequences for them with their families and their place in their communities. So I changed all of the identifying details. I changed the neighborhoods. I don't mention any particular Hasidic groups. And I have changed many of the personal details. And it is ironic, since ethnography in a way is a kind of revealing by the anthropologist of a community's secrets. The challenge for me was really to analyze the life stories and the people who were living them while still maintaining their anonymity.
Okay, so Keith Woods, latest here, talking to the distributist.
That kind of ideal of disintermediation and neo-tribal organizational structures is maybe a vision that its time has come in a way, and that certain developments in the next few years in terms of, again, economic collapse, the collapse of mass society, the loss of faith in the people governing mass society, I think that maybe the time has come for a vision of neo-tribalism that's going to facilitate a rapid expansion of those ideals.
I mean, we've seen we see symbols of this like all the time. Just this last week, there were the Academy Awards, and like virtually nobody watched them.
Right.
Like, can you even imagine? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's not a big thing in Ireland, but like to imagine that an Academy Awards would have happened if I was to go back in 2003 and say, you know, an Academy Awards will happen in 2020, and nobody who used to talk endlessly about the state of arts, letters, music, and culture, nobody, left, right, or center, is going to watch it or care. That would be quite a shocking proposition.
I mean, no one my age watches the news anymore. No one watches.
No.
You know, like even when I was quite young, you know, there was, you know, there's TV stations that people watch before the internet was so dominant, before smartphones. You know, there's a certain level of sort of basic understanding of current affairs that the public is tuned into, and obviously a certain level of system propaganda because of that. But I mean, no one my age reads a newspaper now. No one watches the news. People get their news sources from whatever echo chamber they're in. But I mean, we could go on for ages. I mean, there's a million different examples of how the centralized structures of mass society are collapsing. And, you know, like we said earlier, the center of politics is completely collapsing as well. And it's moving into these radical tribal groupings. But
well, the challenge for us is to build alternatives, because what's happening right now is everyone's being absorbed into these sort of consumer cults. I don't know if you're aware of this streaming phenomenon with people like Bosch and Demon Mama and all this stuff. But these are huge communities of disaffected individuals. But they have no identity outside of sort of these victim identities and consumer group identities. And that's sort of the natural alternative. It's not thick. It's thin as gruel. It's sort of it's identity. It's identitarianism for the Bugman audience, and that in many ways that is our competition, right? It's not in power. These streamers on the left, these sort of victim group kind of Bugman breeding grounds. These are not the people who are in Silicon Valley or New York or whatever, pulling the financial strings and moving industries around. But they are the direct competition for any kind of alternative that's going to be more robust or thicker than, you know, a kiddie pool, or deeper than a kiddie pool. Right now, they're the only ones that have mobilized a resistance to rapidly disintegrating mass culture. But our challenge, I think, as right wingers is essentially do what they're doing, but better and more critically in a way that actually shows strength and beauty, which their organizations to this point certainly have not done.
Yeah, I think you're seeing more of that on the right in a way. I mean, you can maybe count. I mean, maybe would you count like America First as one of those kind of cult groupings as well?
I don't know anything about America First. I've kind of made a point to stay away from it, to just kind of let it be its own thing. I admire Nick Fuentes in some ways and disagree with him in a lot of others. My only thing is that I feel America First in its aesthetics is still way too close to the kind of American Republican cult of patriotism. Maybe that's not so familiar with you in Europe, but if you're in America, you know it. You know that aesthetic good and well, and if you're like me, you despise it.
Right. Well, it's still a project that's tied to reoriented mass society, right?
Oh yeah, it is, and for that
Yeah.
reason, it should be praised, right? But I'm just saying that, like, I think it's thinking in the right way, but I also I don't know. I think we need to kind of take a step beyond that in a different direction.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at as well. Is that
Ashley, I don't know why you think this link is so enthralling here from Keith Wood. So maybe I'm missing something, or you gave me the wrong timestamp, Ashley. I wonder if Matt Christman is any
It's
better.
a reasonable fear to be feared for the end of yourself, but it's only reasonable with certain false assumptions buried on top of it. Like, in a very real sense, death is not a thing to fear because it is I mean, I know this sounds kind of goofy, but it is just an energy transference. Like, the stuff that makes you up doesn't go anywhere because there is nowhere for it to go, because this is one universe, and it is one, like, consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. And a lot of the fear that we have is built on the illusion of our egos. And that might not mean anything just to hear. You might be, well, and that thing, for me, for most of my life, I heard this stuff. I thought, okay, yeah, I don't care. It's still all I have is my precious stream of consciousness and my mind. It's all I have. Yes, cosmic mind, death isn't real, blah, blah, blah. But what about when I go, no, I can't go away. Oh my God. And that's true of any religious idea. From the outside, none of them are persuasive. From the inside, they are fully persuasive. And you have to get inside something. You have to get inside some sort of consciousness shift that abstracts you away from that animal-like terror. Because you're not going to die in the very near future, probably. And if you do, well, that could happen to anybody. You're relatively safe. But it's the fact, I think, that so much of our time is spent alone, really alone, including all the time we spend on the internet, that time alone builds a morbid reification of the ego. It petrifies your ego into this totalizing thing. Whereas, like, social existence, like, there's a reason, one of the big reasons that religion persists in traditional social arrangements is because a socialized life where you are not spending most of your time by yourself with your thoughts is one where there is just simply less opportunity to just build up an ego. And now we are all alone, and we are all spending a lot of our atomized time just slowly, like a stalactite, building this hardened promontory of ego and fear around the elimination of that ego, that it becomes impossible to move at all. It becomes impossible to do anything, because anything can lead to a decline. Anything can lead to less pleasure than you have now. And that's what's so funny about woke. Somebody says this: wokeness is a religion. It is absolutely banal to say that. Of course, wokeness is now a religion because secular liberalism is the final, I guess I don't know if it's the final stage. It's the most recent stage of liberal Protestantism. And before that, fucking Calvinism. It's like there's a straight line from the fucking Puritans to modern wokeness. And what it is personalized Calvinist religious obsession, where there is an individual relationship with God, where your relationship with God is not one of connection, but one of eternal separation. God as unscrutable and unknowable and terrifying, where our only ability to soothe our fear of God is by performing in a way that we imagine that he would approve of. And over time, as the people who believe this center in those urban areas, those big cities, like first Boston and then New York, and as they spend time in their parlors, read their Darwin, the actual emotional fear of God goes away. And God is turned into, instead, the self. We replace God with ourselves. And so we have to manifest virtue in our lives to affirm our status, to show that we are good. But what this doesn't have at its heart is belief. It's neurotic. It's pure neuroses. Now, the same thing is happening to conservative Protestantism, because white Protestantism, you got to say white because, it defines everything. Once slavery emerges, because there is a black Protestant tradition, but it's different because of race. It splits off, and you have merchant northern Protestantism turning into going from Puritanism to Congregationalism to mainline Protestantism, until finally it's not even nominally Protestant anymore. It's just a universal virtue ethic that you're carrying out, unconnected from any belief in anything transcendent. In fact, it's been turned into manners, like all of our politics gets turned into. But then at the root, at the sharp end of Manifest Destiny's fucking spear, the people who subdued the land, scalped the Indians, and fucking enslaved Africans. God also died, but was replaced by the self. But there, the focus is on showing your virtue through your domination and mastery of the land, as opposed to, amongst the northern liberals, the domination and mastery of the self. I have restrained myself, and that is why I am good, as opposed to, I have indulged myself, and that is why I am good.
Okay, let's have a look at the chat. Matt Christman there, with thoughts on the Protestant Puritan origins of the woke movement. Anonymous Professor says Jewish text analysis takes all the fun out of Christianity. Half Galatian says, I think it is more surprising that grown men ever watch the Academy Awards more so than that they have stopped. So I remember one time I watched the Academy Awards was because I was trying to get with this beautiful young woman, and she allowed me to lie on top of her while we watched the Academy Awards. Women not watching has an easy explanation. It's an ethnic explanation. Women watch to see beautiful actresses and dashing leading men. They aren't interested in minority grievance if it impedes on the aesthetics of the whole event, which in the last few years it has. Cooch says, sometimes I hate watch this show, but I never downvote. All right. Hidden Heretics, Jewish doubt in the digital age.
Thank you, Ella. Wonderful, wonderful. I was amazed when I read your first book, and now I admire once again how you write with clarity, concision, elegance, nuance, and substance, never compromising each of these components. The book is a compassionate and sharp story of the liminal space inhabited by double lifers. Ayala gives room to the richness of double life without flattening her numerous insights to one generalized statement, and without pretending to know everything. She writes candidly about the limits and discontents that are so integral to fieldwork and to scholarship, I think, more generally. For me, the book is just one of those books that remind me what a good, solid ethnography is all about. In other words, the book is a delight to read. But the book is not only that. The book foregrounds a myriad of issues informing the study of religion, including questions of ethics, social boundaries, the gendered nature of belief and disbelief, religious authority, and the links between religion and psychiatry. The book also captures some of the most profound features of Haredi publics, including some of the recent dramatic engines of change in contemporary Haredi life. To give only one example, it seems to me that double lifers stretch to its limit a quite common and normalized tendency of Haredi Jews to keep in secrecy certain aspects of their life. It is precisely by way of concealment that full-fledged mainstream Haredi Jews conform to Haredi norms while trying to avoid a totalizing communal gaze. Haredi Jews tend to place their TVs in the bedroom rather than in the living room. Many have two phones, one kosher and the other an unfiltered smartphone. And they often remain silent about personal and family issues that their disclosure may interfere with matchmaking chances. I am apologizing from the outset that we won't be able to do justice to the book. Far from it. You will just need to go and read it yourself. But we will try to at least expand on some of the issues that Ayala just briefly mentioned. A substantial part of the book explores the role of social media in cultivating or permitting what you just defined as a life-changing doubt. You write, Ayala, at some point that virtual spheres constitute a medium that gives voice to dissent. I'm having in mind the dissenting voice of one of your interlocutors who wrote online, and I quote, "The real world is here on social media, on WhatsApp. This is where I have the pleasure of living in an honest and open life. The real world is what keeps me from going insane." Can you please elaborate on how you understand the functioning of social media in the life of double lifers and how it gives particular shape to the personal experience of life-changing doubt and to the formation of a counterpublic?
Yes, that's really central to the book in a lot of ways. So in my discussion of the internet and smartphones in particular, and their changing position in the communities over the past decade, I tried to toggle back and forth between Hidden Heretics experiences and perspectives and rabbinic leadership's experiences and perspectives. So let me begin with Hidden Heretics. One of the things that surprised me was that they all argued to me that their activity online didn't create their life-changing doubt. Everyone said it was actually books, secretly going to public libraries, hanging out in bookstores, that actually gave them the kind of material for other points of view. But what the internet did do, and this is what you were hinting at, Michal, is that it saved them from thinking that they were crazy or alone, because craziness or insanity is one of the explanations, or at least it was until more recently, in the community for life-changing doubt. And the activities online that they participated in, the chat rooms, the WhatsApp groups, Facebook eventually, it created what I called a heretical counterpublic, which is a public that is critical of the general religious public in this case, and it was comprised of heretical ideas. So first on blogs and then later on social media, I was able to follow the debates that were happening in real time and the ways that people's interactions online really built communities of like-minded questioners. I saw how skeptics and heretics criticized their communities. They asked forbidden questions. And those kinds of relationships formed online then began to spill over into face-to-face interactions. As people began to trust each other online, they decided it was worth the risk to try to meet up in person. And so they did. And all kinds of new relationships were formed, friendships between men and women, which is not usual in Haredi context and ultra-Orthodox context, romances, affairs. Some men even began using language, Yiddish, in new ways to express themselves in new forms of writing. In contrast, the ultra-Orthodox rabbinic leadership over the same decade went from blaming the content of the internet, basically as a purveyor of pornography, to some saying that the medium itself was corrupting, especially smartphones. So that even one poster that was in a synagogue compared smartphones to secondhand smoke, that even standing next to somebody using a smartphone could contaminate you and make you begin to doubt. Many called it the challenge of their generation. This is in almost cliche, not cliched, but it's very familiar language that rabbis have used over the decades, especially post-Holocaust. And they compared it frequently to other challenges to Jewish Orthodox existence. So very commonly to the Holocaust, to the Spanish Inquisition, to slavery in Egypt. One of the posters that circulated on social media that, of course, the heretical counterpublic then made fun of was an image of a cattle car going to Auschwitz saying, the Holocaust burned our bodies, but the internet burns our souls. So a lot of really strong imagery and sort of a different temporality, a different sense of timing. But one thing that ultra-Orthodox leadership couldn't do the way they had done with other media was fully censor the internet because too many businesses relied on it. So leadership began requiring filters in the mid-2000s, and they tied acceptance of computer and phone filters to kids' acceptance in schools, in the Mostis. So if you want your child to go to a particular ultra-Orthodox school, you sign a contract that says you will have a filtered phone. And if you need to have an unfiltered phone, you will have to go in and talk to the principal and say why you need that for work.
Okay, let's say hello to Dennis Dale. Dennis, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Luke. Good morning, Luke Ford audience. How are you, man?
Good, man. What's been going on with you?
Oh, nothing. Just still settling into my new digs and dealing with some minor health issues and crap like that. Did you watch the Oscars? I saw you were talking about that a moment ago.
No, the only time I've ever watched the Oscars is when there was this attractive woman who allowed me to lie on top of her while we watched the Oscars.
So you just lay on her like inert?
Yeah, she laid down on her stomach, and then I just lay down on top of her, and then I was because this was like very early on. I was trying to court her. I'm like an old-fashioned dude.
Yeah.
I still believe in courtship. I'm very much the 19th century Victorian gentleman. And so I was willing to watch the Oscars as long as I got to lay on top of her shapely body.
Yeah, it's like some old form of courtship where they let the kids go sort of part way. So like if you were some sect that allowed that, yeah, you can lay on her. Nope, but you can't like squirm too much.
No funny business. It was just
No
very
squirming.
wholesome. No squirming, just very wholesome lying on top of her.
You lay on top of her, then you release and move away.
It was just calming for my central nervous system. I like beauty. I like young, beautiful women. This is how God made me.
Well, seriously, right? Even aside from the sexual aspect, they're nice to have around. They look nice and everything else,
Absolutely.
If they're not annoying, if they're not, and often they aren't, The only thing about young girls is they often have nothing to say because their pretty little heads are off or empty.
I love hearing them talk. Like,
oh, really?
I love like just a mile a minute because fast talking usually goes with intelligence, and so even if much of what they say is bunk, I just love hearing them talk.
Yeah. Even though 90% of it is incoherent.
Yeah, or not terribly significant, but it's just I just like it. I like women. What can I say? God made me this way.
Very good.
So what's been going on with Portland and Antifa?
Well, yesterday was May Day, so they were out last night, about 100 or so marching around causing trouble, but it wasn't a huge deal. I think 2 arrests were made. They seem to be kind of losing steam, and they're probably struggling to put people on the streets and, keep this thing going. But summer's coming. The weather's getting nicer, and we expect more riding. They're passed a bunch of laws at the state and local level limiting what the cops can do, like tear gas, limiting their use of tear gas, and they can't use a lot of these like rubber bullets and stuff they were using last summer. So they got kind of like restrictions placed, like terms of engagement already for the expected, warfare that pop off this summer. But I don't know. I get a feeling it might be dying down.
So there was a link from the Drudge Report essentially saying that the mayor of Portland was tired of these Antifa activists and was going to crack down.
Yeah. And I may have told you about this last time. He wanted just to reconstitute the gang unit to try to get a handle on this doubling, probably more than doubling homicide and crime rate of ours. He was going to ask for $2 million just to reconstitute the cops that go after the hardcore gangbangers. And they slammed that right back in his face. A unanimous city council said, no, but we're coming back with a $6 million plan that doesn't spend a cent on cops. This was a month or so ago. And it gives $6 million to all these bogus like activist organizations that purport to go after root causes and bullshit, right? So that was and now we're still it's like it said, that was a month ago, and it just goes on and on. And the mayor is trying to do whatever he can to get a handle on it. And the one thing he can't do is totally off the table is he can't put more cops back on the street. In fact, they're still taking money away from the cops. They just passed a budget. So yeah, it's pretty funny. Not funny, but pretty screwed up.
So are you doing a thorough carpet cleaning? Is that what I see in the background there?
That's my wet or dry vac. Yeah. No, I'm thinking of going into auto detailing. I'll be a mobile auto detailer. I'll show up at your house and clean your car.
Okay.
If there's a market for that.
Yeah. And what's going on in your closet there? I see a lot of very classy clothes.
Yeah. Yeah. What can I say? It's I should put up something a bit behind me to hide this squalor.
No, it just shows you've got nothing to hide.
This is fashionable squalor. That's yeah.
Do you have a philosophy of dress?
Yeah. Secondhand, like, no, I don't really. Do you?
No.
Yeah. Are you a sartorial type?
No, but I listen to people like, so my sister dresses me. My sister comes through town every couple of years, takes me clothes shopping. So I basically follow whatever she says. And then when I wear clothes and I get a lot of compliments, then I wear those clothes more often. And when I wear clothes and people laugh at me and throw stones, then I don't wear them.
Yeah, it's good to get those clear indications. We actually appreciate it when people throw stones at us because we know to change your clothes. Yeah, you're looking pretty cool right now. I just realized you got the looks like a black sport coat, maybe with the red shirt. That's nice. And it lends an air of a sort of not evil, but
menace.
Yeah. Kind of like, who's that actor that everybody always it's got a Christopher Walken vibe to it. Yeah.
So I just read this blog post, the top 10 personality traits of likable people. What would you say off the top of your head are the traits of likable people?
Oh gosh. Okay. What's likable people? Well, they would be seen as generous. They would be seen as kind, maybe funny, attractive, right? What are they, Luke? What are these secret?
Okay, I'm going to share these secrets. I just didn't want to, throw them out there without building up some anticipation.
Audience.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. So in today's world, being liked is important. Likable people give off more positive impressions. They are given more opportunities and they are more likely to succeed in life. Do you think that's accurate?
Definitely.
Okay, here are the top 10 traits of likable people. 1, sociable. So I think that means being somewhat outgoing. I think it's hard to be likable if you're a strong introvert. What do you think?
Yeah, you have to be well, because it's obvious, right? If you don't engage the people in the first place, and if you sit there quiet, they're wondering what's on your mind, and that will breed dislike. Suspicion will breed dislike. So you have to be able to engage them, definitely.
Okay, second trait, friendly. So again, it's hard to be friendly when you're highly introverted.
Yeah.
So I think there's such a thing as the more socially effective personality type. And so I think being more extroverted than introverted is more socially effective.
Definitely. Being an introvert is harm to me.
Yeah,
You know?
it doesn't serve you. I mean, the woman, the psychologist who wrote this website, and she does the same YouTube channel with the name Ready Set Psych, she makes the point she's highly introverted, so she has to push herself to be more extroverted in certain situations, because going through life as an introvert is not an effective way of going through life.
Yes. I mean, it might be effective in protecting my psychology or whatever the fuck's going on in here on this side, but it is absolutely no utility in engaging the world and succeeding out there. Yeah.
Okay.
I could feel it.
Next trait, reliable. And so, yeah, I think this is huge, that you essentially live up to your word. Reliable. Key trait to be likable. What do you think?
Yeah. I realize I missed the two important ones. Reliable's huge because they want to be able to depend on you, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the introversion, you sit there quiet. They don't even know if you're reliable, a reliable person. Yeah.
So someone who's not neurotic, so people high in neuroticism, that they spend a great deal of time mulling their negative emotions, they're probably less likely to show up on time. All right, next trait, open-minded. So yeah, I think this is key. Like if you say, hey, I went to a new restaurant and someone's saying that, and it's a type of food that you've never thought of or even considered or had any interest in, if you're at least somewhat interested in what people have to say, I think that makes you more likable. Any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it's not the open-mindedness as much probably as you're going to be receptive to whatever they're talking about, right? You're not just going to sit there bored, dismissive if they start talking about some particular interest they have. Yeah.
But
and
we like Sorry, go ahead.
And also it suggests intelligence to them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we like people who make us feel good.
Yeah.
And so people who are moderately open-minded, at least if we say, hey, I saw this new TV show, or I read this new book, or I had this new experience, people who seem to be, open to hearing what you have to say, that's going to make you feel much better than someone who says, who cares?
Yeah. What I've heard said about a good conversationalist is that you leave the conversation feeling like you did very well in the conversation, because that's the way they make you feel. Yeah.
Emotionally stable. So we don't like people who are all over the place, who are unpredictable. We prefer people who are emotionally stable. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's tied in with the reliability aspect. They want you to be solid, and they don't want you to wonder what the fuck's going to happen with you, right? They don't want to wonder how you're going to behave.
We like people who are confident, because when people are not confident, it's a little disquieting. It doesn't make you feel good being on the other side of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a woman is not going to be attracted to a confident man. I think friendship is a lot like romantic relationships in similar ways, in that a friend doesn't want a weak man for a friend any more than a woman wants a weak man for a husband. And it's probably some deep evolutionary shit behind that one, really,
Yeah, I don't feel good when the person I'm interacting with is lacking in confidence.
Right.
That doesn't increase my own sense of well-being.
And I think, frankly, on a base level, we know this person's useless to us, like in a fight or anything. It goes down to dependability or reliability, too. It's like maybe on a base level, we're thinking a friend is somebody who might, do something like fight for you or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read from her essay. Likable people tend to be more sociable. They're more likely to spend time with others and to enjoy being with others. They like doing things with friends and family. They crave social activities. Spending time with others gives them energy, something that they seek out often. Sociable people are likable because they spend more time around people. More social interaction means more opportunities to make good impressions on others and to form strong friendships. Sociable people are also likable because they genuinely like being around others. This means that socializing makes them feel happier and more fulfilled. Happier person is always more pleasant to be around than an unhappy one. If your friend joins you on a trip, it is much more enjoyable if they actually wanted to be there with you. Anything you want to add?
Well, it's all pretty obvious. Yeah, I'm just, I think I've been a bummer a lot of times to my friends. I realize that when I see this, right? Maybe sometimes you can't help it, but if you suffer from depression occasionally, like me or something, this hits home. Yeah. But, you know, this is all very much true. And why would people not, you know, feel this way? And it makes me realize, too, that sociable people do a lot of good just by being sociable, just by keeping us connected, you know.
Okay, likable people tend to be more friendly. They are nice to people. They are a pleasure to be around. They tend to go with the flow. They tend to play well with others. If they don't have something nice to say, they don't say it at all. No one likes hanging around a grump. No one likes a bossy boots who always has to be right. It is much more fun hanging out with someone who is kind and gets along with others. Friendly people are likable because they promote harmony in a group. No matter the person, they find a way to be kind to them and to find something nice to say. They tend to make more positive impressions as a result. Friendly people are simply more positive to be around. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, like I said, they're the people that keep us together, man. If there were too many introverts, and maybe that's what's happening to us now, too many people are opting out of that or aren't taking that enjoyment. Society suffers. Yeah, it's all very much true, very obvious.
Likable people tend to be more reliable. They are there for you when it counts. If they say they will be there at 8 a.m. for that important meeting with a client, they will be there with 10 minutes to spare. You can trust a reliable person to babysit your kids, knowing that they will be in good hands. Being reliable is important because it's difficult to like someone who is not trustworthy. No matter how friendly or sociable they are, if you can't rely on them when it counts, it's a problem. It's much easier to like someone that you can depend on when the going gets tough, and you know they will follow through with their stated plans. Reliable people are likable because you can trust them. They do what they say they are going to do without needing to be reminded. They may even remind you of important plans if you tend to be forgetful. It's nice to have a reliable person on your team as it creates a great sense of ease within a group. Any thoughts?
Yeah, and think of it. You've probably had these relationships. You've had friends who were a blast, fun to be around, but were not dependable at all. And these people really take the role of acquaintances and don't really become genuine friends.
Yeah, I can't afford to have someone in my life who's not reliable.
Yeah, especially as you get older, obviously. Yeah, it's what can I say? That's all obviously true.
Likable people tend to be more open-minded. They are willing to try new things. They are open to new ideas. New evidence comes along that challenges their beliefs. They are willing to listen. Now, one thing that I notice, Dennis, that the more people lack confidence, the more closed they are, because if they're suffering from self-doubt, then a new idea or a new perspective is more likely to be threatening, and they seem to often have an idea deflector shield. So it seems to me that openness has to come along with a certain degree of confidence, because someone who's highly insecure, I can imagine a new perspective is going to be distressing.
Yeah, I've never considered that aspect of it before, but it's got to be true. If you're generally closed-minded, maybe it's you just don't have confidence in your own ability to assess things, or you just, you know, like a lot of people, you've decided these things already, and you don't want to be bothered with any more questions, and you're just kind of annoyed, you know, at any new idea that for you means that you have to reassess everything all over again, I guess, you know.
So do you think people can change to become more likable?
No, that's what I've been thinking. That you can't fake any of this. This is all wonderful, but I don't think you can fake it. Which I mean, but you know, understanding it, you can still do better. I mean, I call myself an introvert, but I've been an extroverted person. I've been fun at parties and stuff. There are always contexts in which it goes away entirely, and I just feel really confident with the people I'm with, and it's wonderful, you know. And I think, oh, I wish I was like this all the time, you know. But
yeah, I think for most introverted people, they are happier when they are more extroverted than comes naturally.
yeah, you need to get the opportunity. You know, and maybe just understanding that, you know, you can't fake it. So it's probably, you know, these rules are all very dead on. I can't disagree with any of it, but I could see somebody, you know, somebody being kind of naive and they get these rules. Okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to emulate all of this stuff and I'm going to be this guy. And it probably will backfire because you won't be genuine. You know?
Well, I've pushed myself, like at a singles gathering, I've pushed myself to talk to women, and sometimes I've struck out, but sometimes I've hit a home run. So
Really?
I have experienced pushing myself to be more extroverted, to push myself to go out to a social occasion, to work the room. I remember I'd go to a therapist for a while, and I'd complain that when I go to a social gathering, I feel like nobody there cares about me. And my therapist said, well, do you care about anyone? And I thought, wow, that's a great insight. And so when I started going to social gatherings, I just started talking to people as though I cared about them. And it worked.
Well, and what's another thing people talk about? People with charisma or seductive powers, they make you feel like you're the only person in the world when they're talking to you. They're just interested and they're just like, you know. I just think it could be easy to overdo that if you're trying to fake it. Yeah, no, I'm all for pushing yourself, like you said. Yeah.
I remember I went to a Match.com singles gathering, and I wasn't connecting. I was feeling really shy, and so I just forced myself just to start talking to ugly women. I thought, you know, at least I'll start with ugly women, and and so some of these ugly women, I think there were this one ugly woman, she was writing a book, or she'd contributed to a book on female masturbation. And so we got to have like a fantastic conversation.
Perfect. Yeah.
Like, and I
Really?
wouldn't have gotten to have that conversation if I hadn't pushed myself.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't have known it was there. And you could go in there and look around. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
she was a
awesome.
poet. She turned out to be a poet. I mean, she was ugly, but she was a poet.
Oh, well.
A
She must have
poet.
been a wonderful lover then.
Yeah. I mean, she had humanity, and like, I'm glad I got to talk to her. Okay, open-minded people are liked because they do better with change. If there is a change in their schedule, it does not disrupt their entire day. When they have to relocate for work, it is seen as an opportunity rather than a burden. They're more creative, imaginative, and adventurous compared to others. This is the person you invite to the restaurant that just opened downtown because they like trying new things. I think this is important because a lot of people, any change or disruption, and they are just like knocked for six. I mean, it's just really, you know, hard for them. They just become a total sourpuss if there's any change. But other people who are bubbly and outgoing and fun, they go, oh, this is interesting. You know, I was expecting to do X, Y, Z. Now that's totally off the table. Now we have to do something I had no anticipation for. Let's do it. I mean, that kind of person is quite likable.
Yeah, it goes deeper than that too. You know, it goes to capability. Like you said, it really goes to a deep evolutionary desire to be around people who are capable, and someone who adapts to the, you know, and above all, doesn't get freaked out of these changes. Yeah, this is the most annoying person in the world, by the way, right? When you're around people like this who freak out over every little change, you know, as if they're, you know, as if that isn't life, or, you know.
I have friends who note how inflexible I am, and it's not a very likable trait. Like,
Really?
I tend to be quite inflexible. Most of my social interactions over the course of my life have had to be on my terms, I think is the way I reacted to the chaos of my childhood. And so someone who's inflexible is not very likable.
I've never noticed that though, really, necessarily.
Thank God, maybe I'm becoming a little more flexible in my old age.
Yeah.
Open-minded people are liked because they have a wider range of interests. They may be the world traveler, the food connoisseur, or the museum expert. They know a little bit about many subjects. They're excited to learn more. Yeah, being around people who are excited to learn is wonderful. Open-minded people are more fun to be around because they don't shy away from new experiences or ideas, and challenges don't rattle them.
Yeah. And you got something to talk about, you know? I mean, you can only talk about what's going on in your little world so much. Every now and then somebody has to bring up something interesting, you know?
Likable people tend to be more emotionally stable. Their moods tend to be more stable and consistent. They rarely fly off the handle. They're not prone to mood swings. They tend to be calm and collected, even in tough situations. Emotionally stable people are liked because it is easier to predict their moods. It is easier to like someone who's level-headed. This person can help keep others calm in a crisis because of their stable demeanor. Emotionally stable people are also liked because they tend to be happier and healthier. Stress doesn't change their mood as much as other people's. They experience less negative thoughts and feelings. Someone who is more emotionally stable tends to worry less and tends to be a positive influence on others. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no. Again, on an evolutionary basis, this goes deep, and it's just like for the woman's sexual attractiveness, she wants to mate with someone who has these characteristics, to have hardier children. Even maybe when we look for friends, we want friends in the tribe who are capable, and when we're selecting friends, we're kind of picking our tribe.
Yeah,
it's good to have people like that who'd be good in war and other shit.
Likable people tend to be more confident. They assure of themselves and their actions. If someone doesn't agree with them, it doesn't bring them down. They're able to handle challenges and failure without letting it defeat them. Confident people are liked because their self-esteem is strong. Friends do not need to constantly reassure them or to walk on eggshells with what they say. Even if this person takes a hit in life, they will be okay. If you are feeling down, this person can help build you back up to feeling good about yourself. Confident people are not cocky. They have a solid belief in themselves, but it doesn't reach the point of delusion. With confidence comes an understanding of your strengths and your weaknesses. Confident people believe in themselves, but they don't feel the need to constantly brag about it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, and confident people can do something for you, and if people who aren't, or people who are always down, or people who are always moping, can't do anything for you as a friend or as a fellow in society. Yeah, it's all true.
Yeah, I think lacking confidence, people who completely lack confidence, I feel like I need to build them up. It reduces my energy. It feels like a drag on me.
Yeah, they're a project, right? They're work, when they should be coming and giving you a little boost with that, infusing you with a little bit of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Likable people tend to be a positive influence. These are the people that you can depend on to lift you up when you need it. They support you when you are down and can always be counted on to have your back. They bring positive energy to your life and feel good to be around. People who are a positive influence are liked because they make your life just that little bit better. They have a smile and a kind word when you are not at your best. While they encourage you to be great and to push yourself, they don't pressure you into things that could get you into trouble. They want what is best for you and believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Positive people who are positive are also liked because they are happier. It is much easier to like someone who is often in a good mood compared to a bad one. These people tend to be more easygoing. They are just more fun to be around. They make others feel happier and more positive as a result. Any thoughts?
I would like to meet these positive people. Where are they? Where is positive land? Do they have their own country? They sound wonderful. Yeah.
She's describing Ricardo.
Oh, yeah. Ricardo, if that's who I think it is.
Yeah, Brundlefly.
Yeah, I think he could qualify as a pretty positive guy, but he has, obviously
he just brings out the best in everyone.
He's going to fuck with you, but I think he's essentially a positive guy.
Except for when he's not.
He's mostly peaceful.
Yeah, mostly.
Sometimes he intensifies. Yeah. Somebody says he has a hot Latin temper. I didn't know that.
Yeah, just a little bit, just on occasion, like
Just enough.
20% of the time.
Little spice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Likable people tend to be similar to others. So the most likable people tend to be more like the average person when it comes to their personality. Birds of a feather flock together. People have a tendency to prefer others who are similar to themselves. So if you are introverted and laid back, you may prefer to spend time with people who are also introverted and laid back. People who are similar to others are liked because they seem more familiar. When you become very used to interacting with a certain type of person, it is easier to figure someone out who fits that mold. There are no surprises or question marks that need answering. Someone who is similar will be easier to learn about and to get to know, which is a comforting feeling. Any thoughts?
Yeah, not necessarily a good thing, though, is it? If us introverts just connect with a few other introverts out here, I don't know if it helps us. You know, I hope that's not entirely true. You know what I mean? I have friends who are very different on this scale than I am. I know that, and it's good to have them around because I can't just fucking communicate with other people who think the way I do. You know.
Likable people tend to be easy to read. They are straightforward. They are easy to figure out. What you see is what you get. If they are excitable and flighty, they let you know it. If they are moody and shy, they are open about it. Even if they are not the most likable person in the world, you will like someone who is easy to read. People who are easy to read are likable because they don't change much. You spend time with them at work and later at a party, their behavior will be consistent. Surprises will be few and far between. This type of person is easier to learn about. You will figure out this person much quicker compared to others. People who are easy to read are likable because they are more predictable. They are like an open book and very easy to get to know. They are genuine. They don't try to be someone that they are not. No matter the situation, they are true to themselves. What do you think?
Yeah, well, that goes with everything else we've been saying. That we like dependable people. We like people who aren't who aren't full of surprises. We like people, frankly, who don't show signs of potential mental illness, and all this suggests well-adjusted people. You know.
So, any blogs or books or podcasts or live streams that you've consumed over the last week or so that particularly captured your attention?
Just the Luke Ford, the ever captivating Luke Ford stream, the ongoing stream of consciousness coming out of West LA, wherever that is. No, I'm nothing in particular right now. I'm just, I've had a lot of stuff in my private life taking my time up. You know, I try to do this sort of amateur journalist thing, blog about Portland, but I haven't been able to keep up with that.
Okay, so next question. How do you get to know someone? So what are some tips, Dennis? How have you got to know people? Any thoughts?
I haven't. It's awful. You know, getting older, it's black pill time. Yeah, you get older and you know it narrows down. Your field narrows down naturally for all kinds of reasons. Yeah, I'm reaching out to people I know from the past now and everything else because I realize I've been awful. I should have maintained friendships over time. Yeah, because I'm not making new friends now. I'm not meeting people. I'm getting out.
Well, good news. The website Ready, Set, Psych has some tips.
All right.
If you really want to get to know someone well, you should do things with them. Spending time with this person is the #1 way to learn more about them. If you only know them online or through observation, your experience will be limited. When you spend time with this person, it's important to do different things. Trying to get to know a colleague from work, don't just spend time with them at work. Get them out of the office, do things that you normally wouldn't. You might be surprised how much they change in a new environment. If you're trying to get to know a potential romantic partner, try the same strategy. Maybe have a nice, quiet dinner one night, then go to a group event the next night, see what they are like at a wine tasting or at the fair. Maybe test out a more formal event compared to a laid-back hangout. Point of all this is to see this person in as many different situations as possible. If you only spend time with someone in the same environment day in and day out, you'll only learn about them in a single context. Context can make a big difference in how someone is. Any thoughts?
Yeah. Work and non-work can be vastly different people. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Just reach out. I have done that a couple of years ago. I was getting people from work to go on hikes locally. That was a pretty cool thing. Very good for me. Yeah, no, just got to reach outside your comfort zone. To sound corny, reach outside your comfort zone and ask people.
I had a friend who was banging a lot of fat chicks, but he was absolutely afraid to be seen with them in public. And they would say to him, like, why do we never go out? But, you know, he loved their big tits, but he wouldn't be caught dead with them in public.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I've had similar, like, I've been seduced by women who I would not want to be seen with in public, or I've had women with whom I had, like, you know, this enormous erotic charge, but then I found I was quite embarrassed to bring them around my friends.
Yeah, I've been there.
I kind of take a sink and swim attitude to the ladies in my life. Like, I take them out socially where they, you know, be with my friends or one of my groups, and if they could swim, you know, then they're a keeper. You know, I mean, keeper as in 3, 6, 9 months. But you know, if they couldn't handle it, then they were a goner. So
catch and release.
Yeah, I didn't prep them, because I think any woman who is less socially adept than I am is definitely a goner.
Yeah, you got to just throw them in that water too.
Yeah, she's got to be more socially adept. She's got to be better at reading social cues than me.
Yeah, you got to give them that big shit test right up front.
Yeah, just like take them to a party, take them to a gathering, and then just see how they do. You know, I don't need to prep them. I don't want to prep them. I don't have the energy. I'm making live streams.
You would just take them directly to the porn industry press party or whatever crazy environment, right?
Well, I
see
have
how she does.
One woman who's still a friend, and the first time we went out, I took her to a Lag BaOmer, like a Chabad religious event, and then afterwards I took her to porn star karaoke.
Really?
So, yeah, and she did great on both. So, I mean, she you know, ended up marrying someone, you know, far above me in social status. But she was awesome. She was awesome at the religious event, then she was awesome at the porn star karaoke event.
Well, too bad. Sounds like a keeper, that one.
Yeah.
Maybe beyond 9 months. Yeah.
I mean, it's very rare that I've dated a woman who is worse than I am at reading social cues. How about you?
Oh, my ex-wife was worse somehow. I mean, women are supposed to know this shit. Yeah, no, because she was so focused on herself that she blundered right past them. Yeah, even though she wasn't, she had the feminine wiles, and when she wanted to read them, like she could read me really easy.
Right.
When she wanted to read them, she could and manipulate them. But in public, she embarrassed me over and over again, just with strangers, social settings. She just blundered right past everything. And it was, I had many, many of those cringy moments. If you guys have had them, where your wife or girlfriend or whoever is just blathering away like an idiot, and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, everybody thinks I'm Mr. Idiot, you know? Sorry.
Yeah, I've had that experience. Most, you know, 90% of women I've dated, I think, are better at reading social cues, but the 10% probably is a reflection of who I am. A lot of the women that I've betted and dated have been a little dented, a little mentally off, and so that's just been horrifying how embarrassing it is, the things that they say socially, and it's like, oh no. And some of the hot chicks that I was with, they weren't the smartest. And so some of my friends would complain, like, you know, I feel my brain slowing down when I try to talk to your girlfriend.
Yeah. It sucks the energy right out of the room. It can ruin your social life. Yeah. So young men, pick well.
Okay. Pay attention. Do you pay attention to what people do, how they behave, the things they say, the emotions they show? Paying attention to others is a fantastic way to get to know them. Learning about someone can be really difficult if you can't remember much about them. Maybe you just haven't paid them much mind. When you pay attention to someone, you'll notice a lot more about them. Small mannerisms, behaviors, quirks, and subtle cues will become more apparent. You'll start to see connections that weren't there before. This will help you learn so much more in a short period of time. When you pay attention to someone, you're showing that you value them. People are much less likely to open up to others who don't show much interest. By paying attention, the person you are trying to get to know will probably open up more and give you more to go off.
Yeah, I wish
How
I
have you
had
done? How have you done with this?
very poorly. Yeah, I'm blind. I'm so selfish this way. It does have to do with dropping your own selfishness. And I'm talking to people. I'm not looking at them, I realize, because I'm all freaking out about how I look to them. It's all this stupid egoism where, you know, I'm so uptight about how I present that I'm not even looking at this person. So I'm probably presenting badly, you know. But you can
Okay.
see why people appreciate it. I would appreciate it. You know?
Tip number 3, don't make assumptions. Another big issue that people make when trying to get to know someone is making assumptions too soon. If you are just starting to learn about someone, keep an open mind. Not everyone fits neatly into a little box. When you judge people too quickly, it's very easy to make mistakes. Reserve your judgments for when you really know someone. Learn as much as you can before assuming things that may or may not be true. If you decide too quickly without all the information, it can backfire. Passing judgment too quickly can make it very difficult to get to know someone. When you decide that you have someone all figured out, you stop paying as much attention and you stop trying to learn about them. It also makes the person you're trying to learn about very uncomfortable. They may feel hurt or misunderstood by your assumptions. So yeah, I've certainly experienced that when I've dated women and they make all sorts of assumptions without really knowing me. I just think they're idiots and fools. Or just forget women, even blokes who make assumptions about me. I just think they're idiots if they don't know me.
Well, it's kind of offensive. Yeah. The two things we don't want is for them to think ill of us or for them to not be interested at all in us. You know, like, how dare you? But also to get us wrong. I mean, what's worse than that? For someone to get you wrong, to get the feeling that they think they've got you figured out. They're not giving you a chance in the future, that means, really. And they've got you wrong, as you see it. Yeah, it's like the worst thing.
Okay, next tip, watch what they do. While listening to what people say is helpful, it's important to watch what they do. People are not always the best judges of themselves. They may see themselves in a way that's subjective. They may not realize certain patterns of their behavior. I remember I was interested in this woman who was a singer, and she was a diva. And when we were at synagogue, she would just walk through groups of people. She was such a diva. She would just like walk through the group rather than walking around the group. And right there, I just thought, I can't date someone like this.
Yeah, no, that's probably a good call. What was that about? You mean like there's a circle of people talking and she'd just walk through the middle of it rather than go around it?
Yeah.
That's weird. You know, obviously she's conscious of this too, and she's trying to communicate something like.
Yeah, she asked, she got that I quickly lost interest, and I said, well, you just walk, you know, right through people. You're a diva. And she said, oh, I'm sorry, I'll try to do better. And but I just wasn't interested in dating a diva.
No.
Have you dated divas?
No, she'll just walk right through your heart, mister. Yeah. No, well, my ex-wife, yeah, that one. Yeah. No, they're the worst, especially if they haven't earned it.
I remember I met this woman at a Jewish party, and we walked out together, and you know, I made out with her. And then she started telling me about her problems, like someone was hammering nails into the tires of her car, and like I was all hot to trot. You know, I thought we were on a great trajectory, but she was disappointed because I wasn't going to take charge of her life and clean up her problems, like the guy who was hammering nails into her tire. So, yeah, I notice sometimes women, I meet them, you know, we make out or whatever, and then they expect that I'm going to step in and clean up the messes of their life. And if you expect that, you know, the first time I meet you, anyway, I don't want to be cleaning up a woman's messes in general.
No.
That's not someone that I want in my life.
If a woman has guys hammering nails into her tires, there's probably a chaotic history there, right?
Yeah.
It's a bad sign. Look, in fact, if you see her car, look for nails in the tires. Just yeah,
I don't want to be cleaning up a woman's messes. Like, I want someone who's an adult and responsible.
Women want to play you sometimes, like the
Yeah.
woman who will go out with you and isn't really interested, but hey, he's going to buy dinner.
Yeah,
Take me to
they
a
want
movie.
dinner and they give you a blowjob and then they expect that you're then going to clean up their life. And
Yeah, come
no,
raise my children.
yeah,
Because it's all about getting something from you, and I'm not even saying that in a bad way. And ultimately, that's what the sexual marketplace is about. But these women are trying to get by you cheap, right? They're trying to get some dad time out of you for what? A blowjob? Wasn't even that good a blowjob, I imagine.
well, I think there are certain women who just that they only are attracted to men who will take charge of their lives. And I'm fairly passive. Like the most
Yeah.
assertive thing I do is to do my show. So aside from my show and the way I run my show, I tend to be fairly passive. So I just don't have the energy or the inclination or the drive or the desire to take charge of a woman's life.
It's probably not something men are wired to do anyway. It's something women are wired to do, right? We should be out in the fields or out hunting, bringing home the bacon, and they should be taking care of that stuff, frankly, taking care of the people at home as mothers,
So tip number 6 is to make them comfortable, and just from my life experience, like don't jump in too early with the talk about face fucking. I just have not had good
Yeah.
result with
You
that.
don't open with that? No.
No, they don't seem to dig it. So have you ever tried to get to know someone who is completely uncomfortable around you? It is awkward, quiet, and weird. They don't say much, and what they say is overthought. This is not the type of environment you want to be in when you're trying to get to know someone. If you want to get to know someone quickly and deeply, make sure they feel comfortable with you. Smile, crack a joke, be yourself, open up to them, show some vulnerability. When people feel comfortable with you, they'll be more likely to relax and be themselves. They will feel like they can open up around you, be honest with their thoughts and feelings, and then they'll reveal more about themselves. I heard one relationship expert make the point that nothing good can happen with a woman until she feels safe. So she has to feel safe. Nothing good can happen until she feels safe around you.
Yeah. And you have to be able to put people at ease and that they can trust you to get there. It's all seduction at the end of the day, isn't it?
Well, you have to assure them you're not going to blog about them or talk about them on your live stream.
Yeah. Have you done that? Have you blogged or talked about these women on your live streams? Anonymized.
Yeah, I mean, some women are just too scared to date me because I write a blog and do live streams. So what I have found in this regard, because it's been an issue for about 23 years, or 25 years, I remember, I mean, I've been writing longer than that. So what I have found is that there's no way that you can adequately assure someone who's worried in this area.
Yeah.
So a lot of women, they're not even worried because they trust that I will use good judgment. But once a woman is worried and concerned, I have found there's nothing I can say that reassures her. If she's got worries in this area, like, I'm sunk.
Well, what really frightens them, Luke, is your legendary sexual prowess.
Yes. They hate losing control.
Don't be modest.
Like, when I take them to heights that they have never experienced before, it's frightening for them because they lose control and they encounter a happiness and a deep sense of fulfillment that makes them feel so incredibly vulnerable that they would rather be less happy and less fulfilled because they are frightened of the power that I can wield over them.
They don't want to be in thrall to you. They don't. There's like, it's like taking up heroin or something. They don't want to go there. They don't want to be sex slaves for Luke Ford.
Talk to their loved ones. If you really want to get to know someone well, don't just settle for talking to that person. So there's this woman I was dating in Florida, and she took me home one night, and she was living with her mother. And so it was our first time together. When I came stumbling out to the kitchen the next morning, her mother said to me, "She's a real tiger, isn't she?"
Really?
And I wasn't really ready for that conversation.
It's not appropriate, but I think I like Mom. Yeah, I did. I don't know if that's marriage material there, but it sounds that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
she'd been divorced 3 times, but she was an absolute tiger.
She was.
Yeah.
I bet Mom was too. Yeah, I thought this was that kind of story at first.
No. I'm a 19th century Victorian gentleman. So have you talked to the loved ones of people you're trying to get to know?
Yeah, no, it's definitely good to get in good with friends, close friends, and loved ones. Yeah, show them you're not an asshole, that you like people. They want you to like people.
Yep. Okay, give it time. That's another advice. Okay, so those are the basic tips on how to get to know someone. Okay, I think I might start to wrap things up for today. Any final words, Dennis?
Oh no, nothing. I'm gonna go try and watch as much of the Oscar ceremony as I can.
Yeah.
Get it.
What was
Get
your
a whiff
favorite
of that.
movie in 2020?
I don't think I saw any of the new releases. I haven't heard of any of these ones that they nominated. Yeah.
Oh, do you have? Are you into REM theory? This is from Mark
What's
Brauman
that?
and Richard Spencer. It's Apolloism. Are you a believer in Apolloism?
I don't know what it is.
Okay, well, I'll leave it up to you to find if you want to find
Apollonian
out.
versus Dionysian, some shit. Yeah, probably.
Something like that.
I'll check it out.
It's a polite version of National Socialism. It's much better to say Apolloism.
Okay. I like polite. All right.
Okay, Dennis. Talk to you later, man.
Thanks, man. God bless you.
Okay, God bless you. All right, let's wrap things up for today with a nice little
Our
bit of
final
music.
hymn is a prayer for God's company at life's darkest moments.
Okay, that's it. Bye-bye.